Dr. Sylvia K. I'm so excited to have you on with us today on the Live Boldly podcast. We have
Thank
matching
you.
glasses right now.
I
I
love
jumped
it.
on and I just went, okay, love her energy. Super excited about having this conversation with you. And we're going to be
Me
diving
too.
into loneliness because
Yes.
this is a topic of conversation with so many people right now.
Yes.
First, though, I want you to tell us a little bit about you. Who
Uh,
is Dr. Sylvia K?
Professionally, I'm a therapist. I work here in Miami Beach as a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have a private practice where I see mostly individuals, some couples. My PhD is in family therapy. So what that basically means is that I am trained to think in systems. I'm trained to think relationally. So I'm looking at all the different things that contribute to our behavior, to our mood, basically broadening the context so that our behavior makes sense.
Hmm.
Personally, I am an adventurer. I am a seeker. I love the unknown. I'm a mom. I'm a yoga lover. I'm a nature lover. And so, yeah, I live here in Miami Beach and I'm about to go through a big life transition, something that I'm telling you for the first time, and probably many of my listeners who don't know this yet. I'm moving to Geneva, Switzerland.
Whoa.
July 24th, like that, people are asking me, so how long are you moving for? I'm like, indefinitely. Like Switzerland is going to become my new home. So I am in the midst of a big change where a lot of things, I'm probably going to identify myself differently in the future. Maybe I'll be saying, hi, I'm Sylvia Kalichinsky. I'm a full-time writer, lover of nature, and I'm here to still seek and question and encourage you to explore the unknown.
See, this is why I was excited about this because I was on a run before this and I
Yeah.
was listening to some of your podcast episodes where you've been interviewed on,
Mhm.
and right away I was like, oh yeah, I love this. It's the continual learning, the continual pulling back of the layers. And the thing that
Absolutely.
I love about you is that you also get real about who you are to the core of who you are. That's the thing that I love. And so
Oh,
that's why I really wanted to dive into this topic of loneliness because,
yeah.
you know, tell us a little bit about how did you
Sure.
get into this research of loneliness? How did you get into, what was it that drew you to it? Where was the curiosity stemming from?
Well, to be honest, I once 2020 hit, I'll never forget. It was March 16th. It was my last day working at Mount Sinai Hospital. I was working as the lead clinician for outpatient behavioral health services, basically providing group therapy for people who have serious mental illness. Wasn't quite sure what COVID was exactly. We saw the news. It was going through China and then it was going through Italy. I was supposed to have this beautiful wedding, May 20th, 2020, March 16th. I'm like, oh, that's probably not going to happen. And so I'll never forget. I left the office because I wasn't feeling well, and I told my boss. I said, "Listen, I'm going to go home. I'm going to write that. Excuse me. I'm going to write that fucking
You
book,
can say it. You can say
and
it.
and I'll try to have that second baby. Can't guarantee that, but at least I can control the book." And I'd had a book in my heart for a while. And so the first book that I thought I was going to write was going to be about self-talk. And I had titled it Hey Ugly. And that's an acronym for You Gotta Love Yourself. And it was all about how self-talk affects us. So I joined a book proposal group, got involved with an incredible woman named Rochelle Fredson. If anyone listening right now has a book in their heart, I highly recommend you contact Rochelle Fredson because she is the one that's going to help you create the book proposal. So in this book proposal group, I'm talking about the book. And as I say the title, one of the women in the group, like, had this reaction. I was like, super sensitive. I was like, what's that? She goes, well, if I was at Barnes and Noble, I think the last book I would pick up is Hey Ugly. And I was hurt, but I was open to the positive criticism. And I was like, okay, let me take this in. If there was any other book I could write right now, what would it be on? And it just came to me automatically, loneliness,
Hmm.
loneliness. And, it was just in the midst of COVID. It was in the midst of the pandemic where we were all really experiencing different levels of loneliness, whether it was in your own relationship or in your family system, or just the setback with, socializing, etc. The thing is, I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I started writing that book proposal, because what I realized, I was writing the book for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because, one of the lines I write in my proposal is, I was born into loneliness. As a child of two undocumented immigrant parents, including my brother who is undocumented, extreme, moments of loneliness as a family system. But then my mother had an aneurysm and she died short of 33, and I was 2.5. And so experiencing that sense of loneliness, being a motherless daughter, being, in just so many different situations where it's this, subtle loneliness, but it's that type of othering, that type of, I would say, the universal pain point where you feel like you don't belong, and you don't even know where you belong, and you don't even know that you're feeling that because you don't really have the vocabulary, to understand that yet. But as I was writing the book proposal, I realized, okay, not only am I writing this for me, for the teenager in me that lived alone or junior and senior year of high school, for the mother in me that was experiencing postpartum rage and didn't even know it, for the 30-year-old in me that was going through her breakup after a long engagement and was scared, she'd be alone for the rest of her life. But not just for me, for all the other people that have experienced loneliness in so many different capacities. And to the people, especially, during the pandemic and ongoing pandemic. I mean, this is definitely a global health concern because it's not just happening in the United States. The more I've talked about loneliness, the more I hear other people saying, me too.
Yeah. I think that's the most beautiful thing that you brought out to light, is the fact that there are so many people who are feeling lonely and alone. Yeah. It's interesting because when I think the most beautiful thing about the personal development work and the healing work is that it takes us to places that we never thought would be possible when we're open to it. Right. I never set out to be a girl on forgiveness. And I now have a tattoo on my left wrist in my mom's handwriting that says forgive. I never set out for it. The thing is that when we can listen to our heart and when we can really open ourselves up to what's possible, that's where the deepest healing also happens.
Yeah.
Now, when I was on the run today, I sat with this loneliness piece. And it really has been a part of what's gotten me into some of the relationships that I've actually gotten myself into, that I've accepted along the way. Yeah. I want to dive into, though, what is the difference? And I know that everybody defines words differently. What is the difference, though, between alone and loneliness? When you're looking at this work, how do you contrast the two?
It's funny because a publisher asked me that question. She was asking me, what's the difference between loneliness and solitude? And I said, solitude is a choice. Loneliness is usually something you get thrown into and you didn't choose it. You didn't want it.
Right.
Yet what I'm trying to help people understand is that even if you didn't choose loneliness, I get emotional. There is one of the most powerful invitations waiting for you, deep in those dark and uncomfortable moments of loneliness, that is waiting for you to discover a part of your soul, a part of who you are, that requires the unknown of loneliness. Because solitude and alone, I choose to be alone. I choose to dine alone. I'm choosing to stay alone at home tonight. I'm choosing to be single. I want this. Loneliness is losing your mother, when you weren't prepared. It's losing that best friend that you never thought you'd lost, and all of a sudden you realize that she's not there anymore. Loneliness is this dichotomy sometimes that happens in life. Like, let's say you give birth and you've been wanting this baby for so long, but all of a sudden you're cut off from this sense of identity or society, and you feel so alone in your home raising this tiny little human, and you feel like you don't have anyone to talk to about adult things, and you're feeling this sense of disconnect from within because you're going through an identity shift. So, loneliness, as uncomfortable as it can be, it definitely is a transformative process that if you can develop the tools and support to go through it and reframe it, you're going to come out of it not just, I don't want to say the word stronger, but you're going to come out of it more whole. I think loneliness is something that we have, from a psychoanalytic perspective, we've split off. Like, ooh, we don't want to feel that. And if you feel that, that means something's wrong with you, or you did something wrong, or ooh, you're not popular if you feel lonely, or ooh, like, that's embarrassing to admit you're lonely. We've split it off. But when you own it and you integrate it, it's priceless to feel more whole. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to feel good, but there's this other layer that you are integrating back into yourself that I think just adds value to your whole journey of self-awareness and personal development.
I posted in my social media a couple days ago, or was it yesterday? It was yesterday, actually, about one of my most lonely times was when I would be lying in bed next to my husband. I'm going to get extremely vulnerable here. And I felt this disconnect. And I would ask what's wrong. And the reply was, everything's fine. I'm good. It's okay. Right? I wasn't fine. And there was no connection, that deep, intimate connection of allowing yourself to be seen. Actually, not even allowing yourself. You're wanting to be seen. You're asking to be seen and understood. And you're not being seen and understood. And then what happens in that, roll over and you cry yourself to sleep and you say, okay, I'm okay. Another day will be tomorrow. And like, we'll wake up tomorrow and it'll just be another day. And it's probably for me at the core, as I'm looking back, and this happened, 10 plus years ago, right? This was years and years and years ago. And by far and none, that was the pit of my loneliness. Now, coming out of that and finding out and understanding through my divorce where that loneliness was coming from and making more sense of it, when I was going through that transition in my life where I felt like nobody was seeing me, nobody could understand my story, nobody could understand the depth of my pain, my PTSD that I was living in, one of the most important things that I found in stepping out of my loneliness was speaking my truth and also saying, hey, look, this is where I'm at. You may not understand it. Try and just see me for who I am. That's it.
I think that experience of lying in bed with your partner, whether you're married or not, and feeling that disconnect and feeling so alone in your relationship is more common than you think.
I 100% agree.
There's a quote that says, what we think is most personal is actually what's most universal. Mm-hmm. I think what happens unconsciously is that we project that unmet soul need that we're looking for onto our partner. And we're thinking like, why aren't you not showing how much you love me? Or why are we not connected? Or, why aren't you showing the effort to show that you're interested in what I'm doing or who I am, or, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a starting point. And I don't want to minimize, and, there are relationships where you may not feel valued, or there's communication issues with your partner, and there's some serious concerns that need to be addressed. But I think if you can go deeper and say, okay, where inside of myself am I not giving my soul attention, my spirit attention, my truth attention? Where am I not creating space to allow myself to explore the deeper parts of who I am? Where am I still scared to connect to the unknown? And so I think in those moments of aloneness, yes, it's important to address what's going on in your relationship, but the most important relationship is the relationship with yourself. And
Amen,
so many of us, but yeah. And the thing is, it's funny. It's like when I talk about the relationship with yourself, it kind of reminds me of that comment, like, well, you got to love yourself before you love anyone else. And I'm like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Like, you got to love yourself. Well, it's not just saying, oh, I love you, I love you, body, I love you, person, I love, no, it's okay. I love myself enough to challenge myself, to ask the deeper questions, to dig deeper, and look at the things that I've been resisting that still keep persisting, like that's self-love. And so I think in these moments where, whether you're with a partner or not, and you're sitting there and alone, either you're alone, you're the only body in the bed, or you're feeling alone, and you're having that moment where I think from a primal level, our brains are wired for connection. So that sense of fear that we experience when we're feeling alone, real or imagined, or we're feeling lonely, real or imagined, there is a real physiological response to that because your limbic system is saying, hey, in order to survive, we need to connect. We need to be around other humans. We need to feel connected. Right. So when we feel disconnected, I think there's both a physiological and a psychological response that says, hey, something's off here. So definitely that's something to pay close attention to. But when we put all that onto another person, that they need to help us feel connected, that's where we are putting ourselves in danger. And that's where we are limiting ourselves from really connecting to our deeper power. So again, like back to those moments, acknowledge it. But I think if you could look at it as an invitation to do the deeper work and to really step up with grit and bravery and courage, and I think most important, curiosity and compassion, then you can reframe the entire experience of loneliness, even the discomfort that comes along with it.
Yeah, it's so you stated that quote is the quote that I actually ended up writing in my book. That was one of the most important things that I realized in the writing of my book, and also looking back into my age of 17 when I had my first trauma, and all, through this journey of my own self-discovery, the most important relationship that you can have is that one with yourself. And it's this it's this pulling back the layers into saying, I love me so much that I am going to close the door on this relationship. I am going to, dive into my own self-forgiveness. I am going to look at the patterns of my life, because you're right. What we resist will persist.
Yeah.
It's so good. So when you're how many people do you feel in this world right now let's go into the statistics of this. How many people are sitting here right now feeling like they're alone or lonely, not realizing how many people actually feel this way right now?
I just want to come back to something that you had mentioned, one of your first traumatic experiences was at 17. And it made me think, in these moments of loneliness, and, there's this, I'm saying, there's an invitation to get to know yourself on a deeper level. I also want to highlight something that has happened to many of us who've experienced childhood trauma. Those of us who did not have our basic needs mirrored or met, the right to be seen, the right to be heard, people who didn't experience positive mirroring in their family system, people who didn't feel safe in their own homes or safe with their own parents. It's really fucking hard to get to know who you are when it was never modeled. Get to know yourself. Just be yourself. That used to piss me off. Just be yourself. I don't know what it means to be myself because I've been a fucking chameleon the whole time, because that's how I survived. If I didn't learn how to people please and figure out what you needed from me, then I didn't know how I was going to survive. I mean, I lived alone my junior and senior year of high school. And being in an apartment, literally all by yourself, where there's no other sibling or parent, no other mirroring, having a bad day, having a good day. That basic mirroring of neurons is so vital to brain health. So I just want to also acknowledge for many of the listeners who are listening who experience significant invalidation emotionally, physically in their upbringing, this idea of getting in touch with yourself and using, loneliness is an invitation to get to know who you are. I could see some eye rolls because, it's not easy to figure that out when it hasn't been modeled to you. And that's where I think one of the things that you talk about so often is so important to this process: community. If you resonate with feeling that you didn't have that proper modeling or that safe environment in your own home or, place of living, maybe it was the neighborhood, the city, the country, finding a sense of community now and taking autonomy for your personal development, for your healing is so important, that just setting the intention. I'm making the intention to find the community where I feel safe, where I can be mirrored. And for some people, they've never had that. So whether it's a yoga community, a painting community, a hiking community, finding some group where you can be around people that have certain values that you have, that you share in common, and feeling some sense of belonging, but most important, to experience the actual mirroring You know,
Right.
when you're resonating, that neural resonance, when you as a group are doing something that you all like together and you're experiencing that mirroring, that's huge. That's where maybe for the first time someone gets to experience, wow, is this what it means to be myself, to do the things that I like? There's so many people that don't even know what they like because they've been people pleasing their whole lives that they don't even know.
So true. So true. You know, I lead retreats in the Grand Canyon in Alaska, the San Juan Mountains. And part of what I ask of people to do, which is something so simple, is to play. Play and get
Yeah.
curious. Just play and
Yeah.
get curious. And it never fails. Every single retreat, I have people say, I don't even know what it is to play. I don't know what it is to get curious. I don't know what it is to skip or to, slow down and to observe. It's so interesting to me how, as we continued on into adulthood, how quickly we moved into
Yes.
adulthood, first of all, and left
Yes.
the child behind.
Yes.
There's a couple of things that I want to touch on. For a lot of people, it can be really hard to reach out and ask for help. For
Yes.
a lot of people, it can be extremely hard to say, I want that community. I want to
Yes.
find those people who are in my space that can support and love me. It's really hard to receive, especially for those people that have not had it modeled for them because they think
Absolutely.
it's wrong. They think, okay, that's being selfish. And one of the most important things is to be able to receive and to be able to ask for help. That alone can be one huge step.
Yes. I think something that's not being named in that is learned helplessness. That's a trauma
Ah,
response. People who've experienced
yep.
complex PTSD, ongoing trauma, whether that was in your childhood, adulthood, this ongoing sense of stress and trauma that felt like it had no ending, can often lead to deeper experiences of learned helplessness where it's kind of like the idea of damned if I do, damned if I don't. If I ask for help, it's not going to make a difference. If I don't ask for help, it's going to be the same. It's been like this the whole time. You know, what's the point of even asking for help? I do believe each person listening has the ability to tap into their self agency, to their own autonomy, to really take that first action step to do one thing that's different. So even if you do have learned helplessness, the acknowledgement of it, even if you do have the fear of asking for help, the acknowledgement that it exists. And even though the fear is there, even though the discomfort is there, that doesn't mean that you can't do it. Can't, I look at CAN apostrophe T. Can't is just an apostrophe and T away from can. And the thing that usually gets us stuck in the can't are all the thoughts related to that T. So if you write it out, CAN apostrophe T, circle the T, what are all the thoughts that you're telling yourself, that negative self-talk, that old narrative, that problematic story that was based on, yes, a real problem, but that old problem is still affecting your choice of behaviors today? So yes, let's acknowledge the trauma. Let's acknowledge any emotional, physical abuse. Let's acknowledge any other injustices that were experienced. And let's challenge the thoughts that you're still feeding, that still feed the dominant story. So when you really take 100% accountability for of your healing, but I also say take 100% accountability for your story. I mean,
Yep.
my story didn't start out the way that I preferred it to, but when I own it, when the more, and that's, I think, the process of loneliness. Writing this book proposal has actually forced me to own a part of my story that I've been so embarrassed about for so long. I've been carrying so much shame about all the moments of loneliness. Even last weekend, I went to New York with my son, and I had this moment of feeling really lonely. This dichotomy of, wow, I'm here in this amazing city with my 7-year-old son. We won these tickets to go to the Yankees game. I wanted to see my friend who was out of town. And as beautiful as the weekend was, I didn't have a friend my age to meet or share the city with. And I felt this like, oh, I've invested all my time in my relationship with my son for the past 7 years, and I haven't been investing in my friendships. And this sense of loneliness and shame, and did I fuck it up? And this is my fault. And I wouldn't be feeling lonely right now if I would have better invested in my friendships and playtime and la 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 la. We do that to ourselves. We tell ourselves a story that usually isn't true. At least 62% of Americans are saying that they feel lonely sometimes or all the time.
Wow.
And so, I just want to go back to circling the T and taking 100% responsibility for your thoughts and the story you tell yourself. That moment of feeling lonely and wishing I had a friend to experience that weekend with is not my fault. It's not
Right.
because I didn't invest in my friendships. It's also based on, circumstance. It could be based on, yes, problems of, I don't know, not having enough support, this productivity culture that we live in, the go, go, go hustle culture that we live in, that also contributes to us not playing and us not connecting. I mean, that's a bigger problem. But when we start to personalize our loneliness, and we blame ourselves for it, we get caught up in this whole, all it does is just reinforce the loneliness and the problem itself. So my reminder to you is question the story you tell yourself about your loneliness. Circle the thoughts. Explore, what are you saying you can't do? Get more curious about the can. You can tap into a community. You can meet a new friend. You can not rewrite your story. You can begin to author a new chapter, a preferred narrative that doesn't necessarily have to be based on the problem of feeling disconnected, that you don't belong, that you're not important, because these are the universal pain points that I think we all have, that we get caught up in. And if you're not aware of it, you'll end up just self-fulfilling prophecy. You'll end up recreating the same damn story that doesn't serve you anymore.
Oh, God, I love you. I would have been sitting right there with you, enjoying that moment. Just, so there is something that I want to tap into, which is dating.
Yes. I love talking about dating. I honestly, like, sometimes with my clients, I'm like, can we just talk about the people that you're dating? And
I really do want to. There's a few stories within this that I want to bring to light. So I want to share this with everybody. One of the things that happened to me, now I'm turning 50 this year. I'm dating. Thank you. I'm super excited about it. Love it. I love the decades. My 40s was my definitely, I mean, everything happened to me at the age of 40. And so that was my everything happened at 40, including my self-revelation, right? My divorce happened in this, selling my home, getting rid of everything, adventuring in life. The 40s, for anybody entering the 40s, for me, it was the coolest, most difficult, most amazing, beautiful, definitely the most transformative decade of my life. Now, stepping into my 50s, I'm freaking excited. This is going to be awesome. I will say that coming out of a breakup in my 40s, I went to Prague, my very first trip overseas alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was amazing. I went over to watch my son play water polo with the junior national team. It was absolutely one of the most amazing trips of my life, because I thought I was going to be doing it with my then boyfriend. Needless to say, I did not. And it ended up, unbeknownst to me, being, again, one of my most amazing experiences, because I realized this during that time, I was not alone. I was not lonely, because I also spent that time literally exploring not only a new city, but a new portion of within myself. And this is when we're talking about, it's an invitation to find out this new part of you. And now I'm entering this phase of dating again. Yeah. And I know a lot of people who are in this phase. How do we know when you are going into this space of dating? How do we know when, first of all, you're ready, right? Yes. And then also, how do we not approach it from a space of lack, from a space of, I need to have connection. I need to, where it's almost like this anxious attachment. And if we can even step into the attachment theories, so that you're coming from a healthy attachment. Now, I'm definitely in a space of healthy attachment right now, where I know what I want. I know what I deserve. I know this space of who I want beside me. Mm-hmm. I also know that sometimes, and I've witnessed it over and over and over again, where people step into it like, I'm just lonely, and so I have to find that person. And then they end up in a relationship that is not healthy. And then they're like, how am I here again? Which is needless to say, how I ended up in the relationship prior to, which then led me into this beautiful space of Prague alone, yet not alone, which I'm thankful for that.
I think a starting point is, to answer your question, how do you know, is to ask yourself this question. Do I enjoy my own company?
Well, that's a yes.
How do I feel in my body when I am in my own company?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you get to that level of maturity, regardless of age, when you get to that level of emotional maturity, that you truly enjoy the company of yourself.
I love me.
That's freedom.
Do you know one of the things I just want to state this?
Yeah,
I've never shared this on a podcast before, but I think you're going to enjoy this.
Please.
When I was going through my divorce, I remember I do this with my clients. I remember sitting, my former husband, we were going through this back and forth of divorce, right? Like, sign the damn papers. Can I just move on? Right? How many people are in this? And I remember saying to him, God bless him, because I really do hope the best, and wish the best for everybody that's going through any sort of divorce. It's difficult.
Yeah.
I remember saying to him, look, could you please sign the papers? I said, I get it. I wouldn't want to divorce me either. And I need to move on. And it wasn't from a place of ego. It was literally from a place of, even in my brokenness, because I did have a lot of healing to do back then, even in that space of, I could see and witness with myself where I needed to learn so much more about me before I stepped into that next space.
Yes.
Even in that space, I loved me. And I had this self-love, and I had this self observance of imperfections and love of those imperfections, so that I could grow more deeply into who I needed to become.
If you don't enjoy your own company, and I used to be in that place where being alone felt so uncomfortable, because it reminded me of my premature loneliness of, living alone at 17. I mean, this was like 1997, it's like before cell phones. I had cell phone just in case of an emergency, right? But before FaceTime and Instagram and all that stuff, where, coming back into this apartment after school where it was like dead quiet. And, I would open up a can of black beans and I'd make rice, or eat cereal for dinner. And no one had talked. Like, that was I would say, a premature loneliness that I think stunted in a certain emotional immaturity. So in my late 20s, after my first big breakup, or my early 30s, being by myself felt really scary, because it reminded me of that void I felt, that almost overwhelming isolation that didn't feel good. And I actually enjoy my own company. I crave some alone time. I want to choose alone time, because I was one of those people that was always on the go, busy, because A, I didn't want to feel my feelings. And B, I would at least be surrounded by people. If I was busy and on the go, there was always people around. And so if you notice that you're someone who doesn't feel comfortable being alone, you're always surrounding yourself by other people, if you're going from one breakup to the next, then maybe you're not really ready for dating. Maybe dating has become another ego defense mechanism to prevent you from feeling your deeper feelings, or from feeling loneliness at its core. And then you're missing out on the invitation, because it wasn't until I finally said, okay, fuck it. This is it. I need to get real and just give myself a timeout and get to know who I am. And sit, there was times when I was doing my Ph.D. program, and I would sit on the balcony, and I would just feel this horrible sense of loneliness, oh my gosh, I'm going to be sitting on this balcony alone for the rest of my life. So we get into these absolutes sometimes with loneliness. And that's another sign that I don't think you're ready for dating. If you're I'm always going to be alone, I'm never going to find someone. And then you kind of but I wish I would find that person right now. Then most likely you're feeling some kind of void, and you're probably going to attract someone that is just going to reinforce the sense of void or loneliness that you have, because like attracts like. If you are approaching dating from a scarcity mindset, most likely you will attract a person who has a scarcity mindset. And two scarcity mindsets can lead you to the first problem, that scarcity mindset, that fear of getting to know who you are, that sense of disconnect. So, again, I think within, as uncomfortable as loneliness can be, when you have the courage, the bravery, and the grit, and the curiosity and compassion to go a little bit deeper and explore, when you get to have those moments where you're like, oh, this is who I am. Oh, this is who I like. Oh, yes, this was scary, but wow, I'm feeling this whole other part of myself. Wow, is this what it means to know who I am? Then when you start to develop that, then you attract different people. You attract people who also are curious, who have had the grit and the bravery to be alone, to figure out who they are. And then when you start to tap into an abundant mindset and you attract that, that's a whole other experience, dating.
I just love this. There's so much that I resonate with it. I so resonate with so much of this. And I'm sitting here thinking about so many of my clients where I'm going to be sending this to them immediately. And like, you got to listen to this, because this is, the scarcity mindset is key. It's key.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's key.
Yeah.
And it's, when we're even for friendships, relationships, whatever it is, so often we will accept for ourselves what we would not want others to accept for themselves. Right. And so that's been one of the biggest keys in my own building of relationships, and also stepping away from some relationships, because I'm like, that's just not going to serve me, if you will, down the line, as I'm rising into this next space of understanding myself and really, truly getting to know who I am.
Yes. I'm just having this aha moment. First of all, I want to let the listeners know, I never want to pretend that whatever I'm saying, that I'm coming from this place where I haven't experienced what I'm talking about. Like, I have dated out of scarcity mindset. I have dated out of feeling, like, oh, I don't want to be alone. Yeah. So for the person that's listening, that you are honest enough with yourself to truly acknowledge that, yes, I am afraid to be alone. And the person that I'm dating right now was motivated out of the fear in me to be alone. Then most likely you are experiencing a deeper sense of aloneness in this relationship. Because if you date out of the fear of being alone, what you resist persists. So there most likely will be a moment in that relationship where you start to feel alone in that relationship. And so if you can have the courage to acknowledge, yes, I'm scared to be alone. And instead of trying to fill that void with another human being that most likely has the same fear of being alone, and you say, okay, let me face this fear with courage and curiosity and compassion. Well, let's break the word alone. Can I start to value all the parts in me and start to understand, not that old adage, oh, we're all one, but, maybe there is this invitation within that aloneness to discover all the parts of you, but to discover a deeper value within you that you've been ignoring because you keep looking to find that connection with another person, which unconsciously devalues you. It's like, I'm not valuable enough to be by myself because it's so uncomfortable and I'm so scared to be alone, but I'm not valuable enough to appreciate my own value. So I'm going to go out there and try to find someone who values me so I can feel connected. It's just a recipe for feeling more disconnected.
Yeah.
There's no shortcuts. There's no shortcuts through your feelings. A lot of people try to intellectualize their feelings, including me. I've done it a very long time. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, oh, this is what it means to feel your feelings. Oh my gosh. Okay. So now this is where the healing starts. And the same thing with dating and connectedness. There's no shortcuts through escaping that feeling of being all alone. It's a universal experience. Loneliness is universal. I don't care how rich you are. I don't care how famous you are. I don't care how popular you are. I don't care how successful you are, right? Or the other extreme. I don't care how poor you are. I don't care how, not famous you are, unsuccessful you are. We will all experience loneliness at one point in our life. So again, when you can look for the golden ticket, the Willy Wonka golden ticket, invitation that's inside, and say, okay, all right, I'm willing to do this. I got the grit. I can truly value the mystery within me. And I don't know what's there, but I'm willing to discover. I'm willing to ask the questions. I'm willing to play. I'm willing to ask for help. I'm willing to create community. I'm willing to cry. I'm willing to feel the bigger feelings. I'm willing, because I think that's the recipe for change.
Yeah.
And I'm borrowing this, willingness plus acceptance equals change. I'm borrowing that from Marsha Linehan. She created dialectical behavior therapy. If you have the willingness to accept, yes, I am so damn scared to be alone. I'm so damn scared to feel lonely, and I'm out there dating desperately so I can find someone. If you have the willingness to accept that that's your truth, then I encourage you to have the willingness to accept the invitation for invitation. Pause the dating, pause the searching, and ask the deeper questions. How can I get more curious about the parts of me that I've split off, ignored, judged, banished? How can I call those parts of me? Because that's what it's really about. It's about connecting to the parts of you that either society, your family, or other people deemed as shameful or bad, or that you split off. This is really about calling back those parts and integrating the total you. And loneliness is a container to do that.
It's so beautiful. It's so, so beautiful. One of the things that I know, as I do a lot of my like exploration thinking, really just pondering, reflecting when I'm exercising, when I'm on the water, in nature, climbing mountains, doing all the things.
Yeah.
And this morning, and even yesterday when I was on my paddleboard, I was thinking about, where did this loneliness within my life start? Where was my moment when I was younger that I remember feeling lonely? And for me, it was not being seen or understood, because I am a little different than a lot of people. I accept that. I love that about me. I'm not meant to be like everybody else. I have a high EQ. I remember one of my friends saying to me, and I, God love him, he said to me, you know, Sarah, dating, he's not single. And he said to me, if I was dating and if I was looking, and he said, I got to tell you, I might be a little afraid of you, because you do, and it's okay. I'm totally good with this. He said, you have a very high EQ, you have a very high IQ. And he said, you love to adventure. Like it's like all of it. And he said, your EQ can be a little bit intimidating, meaning emotional space, right? For those that are not if you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And it's true.
All the people who are listening that have high EQs, that there's usually high empathy that comes with that. And one of the things I'm starting to question and discover about myself and other high empaths, highly sensitive people, if HSP or whatever word you want, highly sensitive people, or high empaths, high IQ, emotional EQ. Where there's high empathy, there's usually some sense of loneliness, because in that high empathy, you absorb both cognitively and emotionally from other people. And it can get really crowded as an empath, because you've got your own feelings, right? You're picking up other people's feelings and thoughts, and you get really full. And sometimes I think within that, there's a sense of overwhelm. And if you don't know how to manage your own sensitivity, or being a high empath, you may not have the boundaries or the ability to say no, or know really where your limits are, because you're a person that's used to just pushing yourself beyond your limits. And then sometimes within those moments of being a high empath, you might not return people's phone calls. You might feel too exhausted. You might cancel plans. You might create your own sense of self-isolation, because energetically you're so full. That's what you need. So I think also within loneliness, if you are someone that does have a lot of empathy and you tend to absorb other people's emotions, especially other people's anxiety and stress, then I think this is also a good reminder to get curious how you can better manage your own energy, because I think that's another component to trying to figure out who you are. Someone who's an empath, or someone who has developed people pleasing as a way to survive in this world, there are so many layers of thoughts and emotions that you've absorbed from other people that it can get really confusing. Is this mine or theirs? Is this really the way I think about this? Or is this the way I've just conform to survive my environment. And I thought this, but I really don't. So I think there's also a whole like deconstruction process that's required of someone who has high empathy in this whole experience of loneliness, because most likely a lot of the energy and stuff that you've absorbed is not even yours. So that could also maybe be a little bit uplifting, to unburden yourself, say, okay, maybe some of this is not just me, this is other people. And how can I, just start the process of separating all the stuff and create, maybe loneliness is actually the space you need from not absorbing everyone's stuff and not continuing to sacrifice your own needs to please others. So maybe loneliness is not just an invitation, but it's the break that you've been asking for. You just didn't know how to ask, or you didn't give yourself permission. So maybe it is this phase in your life that you've been needing, and it's finally presented itself. So it's not necessarily such a bad thing.
There's so many things that I could keep touching on with you, like attachment theories. Like there's so many things. There's so many things. And I know that we do have to break in just a few moments. And at the same time, I'm like, I just want to keep going.
Me too.
I just want to keep going.
We're going to have to do a part 2 to this.
Can we have a part 2 to this? I actually would love to. I would love to. I really, one of the things that I know, you know what? Let's do this, because this is how I operate. And I love this on the clock. Everybody that's listening to this, here's what I want you to do. This is your call to action. Go in, leave comments, send me a message and ask me, what other things would you like us to talk about when it comes to the subject matter? Because it really, truly is an epidemic. And Dr. Sylvia, if you would mind coming back and also
I would love to
answer these, we can even do it on a 15-minute short, whatever works. I would love that, because this is such a topic, a hot topic for so many people, especially coming out of the pandemic and trying to reintegrate into this world in a different kind of way. We can't do it the way that we are doing it. We simply can't. It just doesn't operate that way. It doesn't work that way.
And it's really important to say also that our Z generation, our youngest demographic, is reporting the loneliest generation.
Yeah.
So, it's something really important to pay attention to, that our youngest generation are the loneliest.
Yeah.
So we need to keep talking about this. And the more we talk about it, I think the better we'll feel and the less alone we'll feel in it.
I 100% agree. Everyone, if you could leave comments, please, or just message me through Instagram, through social media, through my email, sarah@sarahschultenkranz.com. Message Dr. Sylvia. I'm going to have you drop in all of your contact information where people can find you as well. And let's keep this conversation going, not only for self and also for others, for our kids and for the generation, like you were saying, right?
Yes. Our 18 to 24-year-olds. Definitely.
Oh my gosh. It's unreal. It's unreal. I witness it over and over and over again. So where can people find you? Let's talk about the book quick. Give us all of the juice, because you're amazing. And I want everybody to find you.
Instagram. So at Dr. Sylvia K, that's spelled DRSY as in Yankee, LVIA, letter K. So Dr. Sylvia K. I have a website, drsylviak.com, have my podcast, The Dr. Sylvia K Show. I'm still in the book proposal form of Lonely AF. I am starting an online course starting in September, late September, where it'll be a small group course where we're going to go through these layers of loneliness and also create, not just the group support, but we're going to create that community. We're also going to create the conversations that are healing and find constructive and holistic ways to create the tools within to really create that connection within ourselves so that we can strengthen our connections outside of us.
Love it. Book proposals are a pain in the ass. I don't know what else to say. I had to do one too. And it's also the deepest, most incredible exploration of self and what is possible. So I remember it like it was yesterday, and it's hard. That's all I can say. It's hard. It's harder than writing the book, I feel like. So good for you. And I commend you. And I am so blessed and honored to have had you on for this hour. Continue this conversation at a later date.
It feels like serendipity.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I also want to say, I am I'm so excited for your flight across the pond. I'm so excited.
Yes.
I'm so excited for this next transition of self with what is happening in your life.
Yes.
I will be doing this in 2 years myself when my youngest is out of the house, and I'm just really, really excited for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
I'm really excited.
Absolutely beautiful. Yes. So thank you for being on.
My pleasure. I can't wait to come back.
Absolutely.